Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm so happy you could join us today. We have another wonderful show for you. This is the show dedicated to caregivers. If you're a caregiver and you're caring for someone with Alzheimer's or some other type of dementia, then this show is for you. This is a show that we interview professionals in the healthcare field, in the legal field, in the medical field, any professional that deals with geriatrics and in healthcare that could give you wonderful advice, great tips, and an explanation of things that caregivers need to know on their caregiving journey. We also interview real-life caregivers who are walking the path that you're on so that you can learn from them, because who better to learn from than those who walk in your shoes? And so today I am so excited to be able to present to you a real-life case study. Now, we talk about a lot of things on the show, and today I want to present to you a very current real-life study, a case study that involves a daughter who is caring for her mom at home and everything that's related to that. And here today to help me with that is my colleague. Her name is Dawn Epstein. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Marcia. Thanks for having me.
I am
happy to be here.
so glad that you're here today. We
Thank
are
you.
partners today on this case study.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn is the executive director and the supervisor of care management at the Alzheimer's Care Resource Center here in Lake Worth, Florida. And so you have a very important job, a very busy job. And I know you deal with a lot of caregivers on a day-to-day basis. So your job in particular, overseeing the caregivers, getting them help through your care managers.
Absolutely. Well, we're a resource center, first and foremost. So we take calls from caregivers constantly, some in crisis, some want more information, some just in desperate need of knowing where to go next, basically. So we help guide them, provide the resources, education, information. We typically have them come in if they're local and meet with them to try to find out, what their best plan of action is based on where they are in the course of the disease. Sometimes they're just newly diagnosed. Sometimes they're just at the point where they can't take it anymore and they just really need some guidance. One of our core services is care management. So we do have care managers. We do full assessments for families. We basically can go in and assess a situation, give our recommendations, and assist with the implementation of those recommendations for families to try to provide the best options for any given family, because it differs family to family and the situation as well. So we do go and do that. We have companion services too, so we have a lot of options for families we try to provide.
Well, that's great, because certainly caregivers and other professionals in the healthcare field that don't know enough about Alzheimer's dementia really need all these resources.
Right.
So the more that we know, the better that we can not only help others, but to help take care of the people that are suffering with the disease.
Right.
And so we're going to be talking today about a real life study that is a particular case study that we happen to work on together. And it's very current. So I'm excited because we haven't really had a chance to talk about this in depth today. So it's going to be right here, right now. and talking about this. And I hope that this scenario will help a lot of our caregivers, because it really is going to delve into the nitty-gritty of what happens from the time a caregiver is really overwhelmed and comes to the end of the rope, through the process of how they get help, what happens next, and how their issues are resolved.
Right, absolutely.
So that's what we're gonna do today.
Okay, so we're doing our case study. Well, I'll start how I started the basically the case came to me first. So I received a call from a daughter who called regarding her mom. She was referred in by her physician. She was actually told by more than one of her mom's physicians that more care was needed than she was probably able to provide in her home. She is, a daughter. She has a full-time job. Works during the day, would come home and try to take care of her mother at night. Well, one thing that happens, and you see it a lot dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia, the day-night cycle becomes confused, and her mother was staying up at night and really wasn't able to provide the supervision that she needed for her safety and well-being, because she had to sleep, because she had to get up and go to work the next day. She did hire a caregiver to come in while she was at work, and obviously this gets costly for the family too. And her caregiver was fantastic, but not able to provide really 24-hour care in the home. This particular mother, who was very well, her demeanor was fantastic. She was lovely, but did have some compulsive behaviors that were very repetitive.
Well, before we get into the mom,
okay,
all right, I know that you first got a call from the daughter,
right,
because her doctor said you need to do something.
Right.
All right, so the doctor actually referred her to your organization for help.
Right.
So did she give you a call? Did she come in? How did that happen?
It was a phone call.
Okay.
She was really, I would say, pretty close to a crisis situation. She really needed to make a decision. She sounded very stressed on the phone, and just wanted some help and guidance as to, these physicians who knew her mom and cared for her mom medically were telling her that she needed to make some very serious changes and some very serious decisions. She wanted to make sure it was the right thing.
Okay, so she needed validation from healthcare professionals that knew Alzheimer's and dementia, if the doctors were right.
Right.
So in other words, it's almost like she's getting a second opinion.
Right, from someone more coming from the social services, coming, from a different perspective.
Yes.
To step in and really specializing in Alzheimer's disease, in families, and in what the options were in the community. Because the physicians, they diagnose, obviously provide medication and will provide recommendations, but so where do I go now?
Yeah.
They're saying
here's
I need
a pill. Here's to take the
Right.
pill. This will help with your memory.
Right.
Come back in 6 months. And in the meantime, the caregiver's left to deal with it on their own. And
Right.
I mean, where's their support?
Yeah, there's no textbook. You have a diagnosis, here's a medication. We'll see you in 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, and I think most doctors, either because they don't have the foresight to think about doing it or the time to do it,
Right.
they don't educate the caregiver of what's coming down the road or what's coming next or what they should expect. And so when things start to happen and things are going crazy, they're really caught unaware because no one told them.
Right. And that's why we have physicians in the community who obviously have taken that foresight to really, they will write a prescription and send them to us. And so we will sit down with families. We try to do this early on, and we have a lot of physicians that are doing this right after a diagnosis to try to help prevent, what I see, the crisis calls from coming in.
Okay.
Where we have a plan from the beginning, they have a call, they know we're here, and they have somebody, like you said, support.
Yeah.
And start the supportive services.
Yeah.
In this particular case, unfortunately, I think the daughter became involved and had been living with her mother and taking care of her, for a few years. Prior to that, her father, which is not uncommon, was probably covering up a lot of things or just compensating for perhaps
Because the father was the primary caregiver
Right.
until he passed.
Right. And that, unfortunately, that's another big concern. Roughly 64% of caregivers who do not receive help, outside help or assistance, end up becoming ill or passing away before their loved one.
Because of the stress.
The stress, absolutely. And I think that, I don't know in this particular case, I didn't know him, but it certainly isn't uncommon, unfortunately, to see that. So she came in basically as over time. I mean, she could handle it, but as we know, with dementia, it progresses, situations changes. I mean, the caregivers obviously all know that, days can be different, tomorrow can be different. You don't really know what to expect. But certainly over time, there will be new challenges to face.
Absolutely.
And in her case, that's exactly what happened.
So after she told you what was happening at home and the doctors were telling her what she needed to do, what's the first thing that you did?
Well, we offered to really go in and do, in this case, it was more of a partial assessment because we knew exactly what she needed from us. She needed to know whether or not placement was the proper method or proper, I guess, avenue to go, and what type of placement, because there's different options. There's assisted living, that's just general assisted living, and then there's assisted living for those who are memory impaired,
like Arden Courts,
right? Or exactly, and then there are skilled nursing facilities. I mean, there are options. So what exactly is appropriate for her, we didn't know.
Right, and most caregivers don't know that because most of them don't know the fine lines of distinction between all of those and which is the best place. So, go to professionals who know that.
Right. So we actually scheduled a time to go out and meet with her mom, and when the caregiver could be there as well, because she was at work, and we felt that it'd probably be best in this circumstance for us to go out and just meet with mom. And we had the caregiver there for validation and could meet with her as well.
Was the daughter there too?
No.
Okay.
No. In this particular case, we did not. She felt like most people, they know their loved one pretty well, that mom would probably have deferred to her and looked to her to answer a lot of our questions, which wouldn't have been that helpful or would have caused an issue between the two possibly.
Yeah.
So
then it wouldn't have been maybe a true assessment.
Right. So I felt I really could see what was going on. And it was interesting because of the repetitive behaviors, how much accommodating this daughter had already done or attempted to do in the home, because she would obsess over things like the laundry. She would literally go through 30 loads of laundry if allowed to throughout the day, would do nothing but go through laundry and wash clothes that didn't need to be washed.
I was going to say, how do you have that much laundry with only
rewash.
2 people in the house every week, and unless you're washing things out of the linen closet that are already clean?
Basically, that's what I think she was doing.
Wow.
And so she had locks on the door, had locks on the laundry room door, had locks because she would also go in and obsess over the toilet paper and things like that. Had locks on these, her mother could not really venture freely throughout the house for safety reasons, but also because of these repetitive, compulsive and obsessive behaviors, and was considering putting a lock on the refrigerator because mom was literally drinking a gallon of milk a day, had stomach problems, which might be, obviously that wasn't helping, or obsessively drinking all of the orange juice, eating constantly, forgetting that she had already eaten, and the daughter really didn't know how to combat this because she was just, even at night. During the day, the caregiver could use distraction techniques, which is usually what we recommend. However, at night, she wasn't supervised, and she was afraid.
So it was a free-for-all.
Right.
It was party time.
Yes, and sometimes judgment becomes impaired, obviously, with this disease. So how much is she putting in her mouth at one time if she's really gorging on food? Could she choke? I mean, these were real serious safety concerns.
Absolutely.
She would go looking for food items or things, on top of bookshelves because obviously, again, her judgment is impaired and become confused. So she's climbing at night trying to see if there's
she's
food.
about 83 years old.
Yes, 80, I believe she's 84.
Okay.
But yes.
And she's climbing on shelves to get up to shelves on ladders.
Yeah.
Or
And she was already unstable and needed assistance to walk during the day. The caregiver was with her. So she had it as secure as she could. But it really was, the situation had just spiraled to a point where we really needed to look at our options, and it wasn't safe.
Wow, it's a dire situation.
Right.
And you're right. It sounds like it was a crisis with locks over everything and
Right.
not even be able to get into the bathroom easily if you needed to go. Wait, I got to get that lock. And, who wants to be in a prison, basically, in your own home where it's locked, everything's locked up. But she had to do what she had to do at that point in time to keep mom safe.
Well, but they were both in a prison.
Yes.
Because the daughter used to get up and go to the restroom in the middle of the night, had to get through the lock. And if she's going to lock up the refrigerator again, that these were all definitely things she needed to do in a moment of crisis where she didn't have any other options. But we had to really look at the whole situation. It's not the best for either one of them under these circumstances.
Right.
Not the frustration alone of day to day, having to deal with all these locks and the repetitive behaviors and just the unsafe conditions. The
and
daughter
just
wasn't
keeping
sleeping.
up with all the keys that go to all the locks, even that would drive somebody nuts, right?
Right.
So, wow, this is a situation. It's a real-life case study we're talking about. So we're going to go to our first commercial break, and when we come back, Dawn's going to tell us more about her assessment of this lady and what happens next. So we'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
The bottom line is it was the absolute
The inability
right
to
choice.
recognize the
You know,
obvious
at home.
often occurs with
Right at home
Alzheimer's,
surely gives me
particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us.
Our services
We know. We
are
understand.
unreal.
We can help.
Change
Arden
someone's
Courts.
quality of life every day.
Wandering is a common problem for people
I've
with
had a good
Alzheimer's or
relationship with Ray.
related dementias.
Been very,
It's
very
also a
good.
problem for family members.
They could count
Keeping
on
them safe
never
and
depend
secure
on them.
means never
So call
letting your
Right
guard
Home
down.
Home
And
Care
even though
in
deep
Palm
down
Beach
you
and
know
Broward
it's time,
Counties.
it hurts to have to ask for help.
561-910-1843,
But it could hurt them even more if you
and
didn't.
you'll feel right at home. You are listening
We
to
know.
your host,
We
Marcia
understand.
Teele, an Alzheimer's disease
We
and
can
dementia
help.
care expert on
Arden
CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, I'm back, and my guest today is Dawn Epstein. She's the supervisor of care management at the Alzheimer's Resource Center in Lake Worth, Florida. And Dawn and I have been talking about a real-life case study that we had the opportunity recently to join together on to help a family. So, Dawn, we established now that the daughter was in crisis because of the mom's Alzheimer's, trying to take care of mom at home by herself with a little bit of help from a private duty home health aide coming in, but it wasn't enough. And she felt like she was overwhelmed, couldn't do it anymore. So you've gone to the house, you've noticed all the locks on all the doors,
Right.
blocking the laundry room, blocking the bathroom because mom would go in there and pull all the toilet paper out and stuff it down the toilet, and almost blocking the refrigerator to keep mom from gorging herself all night long on food, which is not healthy for her. So at this point now you've noticed the surroundings. What was the next thing sitting down with the mom that you did?
Well, we introduced ourselves. I brought a caregiver or care manager with me as well, who's in training and learning to do this. So, and she welcomed us graciously. She was very sweet. We sat down and just told her that we were, social workers, and we were coming to check in on her, how she's doing. The doctor did express some concern about her well-being. So we just asked if we could speak to her a little while, ask her some questions. So we asked her how she was doing and, asked her about recent events just to get an idea of what she could really tell us. She did tell us she was visited, couldn't tell us exactly when, but by a couple of friends that she used to work with from, I think, in New Jersey in the Northeast area, that they had come down to visit her and that they took her out, and she really enjoyed this. She expressed to me that, she spent a lot of time talking on the phone, watching TV, but likes to go out and have coffee. Meanwhile, her caregiver is behind her shaking her head no.
That wasn't true.
None of this is happening.
So you're checking for her short-term memory.
Absolutely.
To see how short her memory is.
Right. And what she actually, she thinks she's doing And the caregiver was, confirming that no, and what the daughter had told me previously was really she didn't have a lot of social contact with people and didn't like to leave the house, which isn't uncommon either.
So what is in reality and what she's telling you are totally different.
Right. And I'm not going to obviously argue with her or tell her she's not.
Right.
But
And we know this is common,
Absolutely.
with people that have short-term memory loss because she's actually creating a story that she believes and also that she wants you to believe. She's answering in the way that she thinks she should or what she might want you to hear.
That as well as, or she could even be remembering the way she functioned years past, where she actually did go out for coffee and do these activities and doesn't remember. I've had caregivers tell me they're still working. They get up and go to work every day, and that's what they remember. In her case, obviously that she knew she was retired. She knew she lived with her daughter, so she confirmed a lot of information and kind of let us know that she did have some good awareness. I do have set tests that I give to really determine where someone is functioning cognitively.
So a little bit like a mini mental exam?
Absolutely, the mini mental exam, exactly.
Okay, all right.
But I do that along with a general conversation to really get an idea of where a person
More
is.
in depth.
Right, because she was able to give me some orientation. She was able to tell me the town she lived in, the state, maybe not the exact address or certain information like that, but she knew generally where she was.
Okay.
Was able to remember maybe one word for a 5-minute period that I gave her, so she did okay with that. Could actually subtract 7 backwards from 100, but better than I could probably have done.
Don't give me that test.
Right. So I was really impressed with that ability too. A lot of it was focused on the behaviors and the obsessions in her case. She was repetitive in the story, so you could really see where that she kept bringing up the same people that came to visit her and kept asking the same question to the caregiver. What were their names again? When did they come? I really liked it. Where did we go again? So, she was very focused, which is also not uncommon. It's like a recording that kind of got stuck on that visit, and she was very aware of that. Otherwise, she was pleasant and cooperated. We also do some tests of how a person is functioning emotionally, and she didn't show any signs of depression. Really did not seem to have insight into the fact that she has a cognitive impairment.
So what you're saying, she wasn't aware that she had any issues?
Right. No, not really. She did say when asked about, she knew she needed a caregiver. She knew she didn't drive anymore, and that was a big issue for her. So she was okay having the caregiver drive for her. And when I would ask her a question that she couldn't answer, she would defer and say, "Oh, she thinks for me. I don't have to do anything for myself anymore. She does it all for me."
So now she's covering up for the fact that she can't remember and she doesn't know the answer and she doesn't want to put herself in the position of saying the wrong thing for fear that, the consequences of that.
Right. So even if I asked, if what she would do if she were to make a sandwich, and she really couldn't go through the steps and tell me how to do that. So she just said she does it for me.
I don't have to
do that. Or where do you keep certain things? She had really no idea of where things were. And I did have some information from the daughter that she was using strange ingredients. Adding, if she was even helping in the kitchen or doing anything, she really didn't know how to make a sandwich or what to put into the bowl to stir it up. Mm-hmm. So really shouldn't be left unsupervised. And I tell caregivers and families this all the time. Just brings up a point. Make sure any type of cleaning items or anything is not kept in the kitchen when you have someone with an impaired judgment and cognitive impairment.
Yeah, you're right. I had a story from a family member where they had a bottle of furniture wax. It was liquid furniture wax. And you know how it has a lemon on it?
Yes.
Okay, and it was under the sink and they needed lemon juice for something they were making. And they actually saw this bottle with a lemon, like, oh, there's lemon juice, and put it into something that they were making, thinking that it was a food product. In reality, it was a chemical and it was a cleaner. And that can be deadly.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, at least it's going to make you sick.
Yeah.
But depending upon what the cleaning product is, it could be deadly.
Right.
And it's just a matter of they can't read, they don't comprehend, they just see that lemon and think lemon juice.
Right. It's a comprehension factor. I mean, we actually use that when people start lacking the ability to find their way around. And this woman was also expressing that when asked, where the bathroom was, she really was, again, deferred to the caregiver. So even in her own home, couldn't find places. And we actually put up pictures to help, because reading the words is hard, and it's a comprehension issue to some degree. They don't know, saying bathroom and seeing the word bathroom may not connect to what the bathroom is. So picture of a toilet. So yeah, if they see a lemon, they're going to think that that's a food item. So absolutely.
So
you can use it in
your caution of don't use any cleaning products in the kitchen, don't store any there, is just for that reason.
Right, absolutely. So after we went through and visited with her for a while, and just made some small talk to her once we kind of gauged where she was cognitively. We excused ourselves and just said we were just going to take a tour of the house, and the caregiver took us around. So when we went to the other room, she basically reiterated to us privately. We didn't want to speak in front of her and have the caregiver say anything that would upset her or cause a problem between the two and their relationship. And she did tell us that anything she did to an excess. Like she would focus on that to the excess until she, like the laundry detergent. She would do laundry until the laundry detergent was done. Would drink orange juice until it was completely gone. And that's, you see all types of behaviors when you're dealing with a dementia or any type of neurocognitive impairment like Alzheimer's.
And the toilet, the bathroom issues seem to be one that for some reason they do focus on, and they do get very obsessive about it. Several times through the years, I've had families who tell me that their loved one is obsessed with going to the bathroom, that they feel like they have to go, and they just went. And it would be less than 2 minutes later, I got to go. I got to tinkle, or I got to go. And it's not that they have anything urinary tract-wise that's off, because obviously they've already taken them to the doctor, right? It's all in the brain. And for some reason, this is obsessive to them that they just always have to go into the bathroom.
Right. And it can be, in some cases, they have nothing else to do. It's a boredom factor. So we recommend, obviously, once you realize they really don't have to go, you're going way too often, set up maybe a toileting schedule, so you obviously don't want to have any accidents, but find a way to distract them so they're doing something else meaningful, because sitting in front of the TV isn't going to typically be enough to really give them meaningful activity to do. They're going to get up and go to the bathroom again.
They're going to find something to interest them.
And that happens with the eating, too. And in this case, that was happening with her. She, to a degree, she may not have remembered that she just ate, because obviously there's a memory impairment. And I see it the other way, where people that they think they've already eaten. So you end up losing weight and trying to get them to eat.
And in this case, the lady was probably gaining some weight.
Right. So in some cases, making smaller snacks, because she's obviously she's looking for something to do. I think it really is a lack of stimulation issue for some of these individuals. There really wasn't much in place other than a caregiver in the home. They had a hard time getting her to go out, and to really get dressed. She just didn't want to. She wanted to stay in her comfort zone. Perhaps it was scary to her. I mean, once they got her out, she seemed to enjoy it.
It's that venturing out, is taking that first step out the door. It is scary for them sometimes, because change is scary, and a change in your environment, even it's from going from your home outside, is a change in your environment.
And when you're already confused and have a memory impairment and may not really be fully understanding what that person wants you to do or where you're going, you'd rather stay where you are. You're safe. It's comfortable. I mean, you know your surroundings, and so you don't want to be removed from those surroundings.
Right.
And actually, in this case too, another observation I made is they had a dog.
Oh, they did.
A puppy that they had rescued, which was my total advocate for that.
Now that's adding a lot of turmoil into this mix.
A 50-pound puppy.
Wow.
That could have easily, completely unintentionally knocked her down. Out of wanting to say hello. I mean, this is a woman who's unstable, and you had a dog into the mix too, and so that also had to be. So now the dog had to be locked up from her, and that issue was going on as well. So there was a lot of accidents here waiting to happen.
Now I can see maybe the daughter's thinking of getting the puppy because it might be company for the mom while she was at work, and somebody to love and pet and have. But at the same time, you have to think of, okay, what are the consequences? Because somebody has to walk that puppy, somebody has to feed that puppy, someone has to take care of it, and is mom able to, and probably the private duty aid helped with that.
Yeah.
But at the other end of the spectrum, you do have the safety issue too,
Right.
with running in between your legs and knocking somebody down.
Yeah, and so in this case, that became evident that was a huge concern. And then the caregiver did a great job, and it is something that pets are great, and there's pet therapy. I mean, completely think that's it's a wonderful tool to help relax and give somebody that sense of purpose and meaning, because regardless of how old we are, regardless of any type of ailment we suffer from, we all need meaning and purpose in our lives. And so in this case with this particular client, I think that her day-to-day existence really didn't give her that. And so she was almost desperately looking for that by doing the laundry,
Yeah.
by these repetitive, types of behaviors.
Her world had gotten so small.
Absolutely.
Because if she was she a career woman? Did she have a job?
Yes.
At least took care of a family. Because we
Yes.
know she had a daughter or two or three or other
She
children.
had 2 daughters, and she worked. She had been retired for at least 20 years by now, but
she's
she
used
did
to
work.
being out there.
Right.
And so now with the dementia, her world is so small and it's limited to inside the house and not
Right.
even being able to go into the bathroom at will or into the laundry room at will because of the lock. So her world has really changed. So you finished the assessment after a few hours.
Right. It took a few hours to go through the full assessment, all of the questions, interviewing her, interviewing the caregiver, and taking in the surroundings. Then we basically we write up a report, and we find the proper recommendations and referrals, because in her case, she was very high functioning.
Okay. And we're going to find out what your recommendation was as soon as we come back from our next commercial break. So stay tuned.
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know, we understand, we can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them.
1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And we are back with Caregiver Solutions info. At this time, I'd like to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Community. Arden Courts has 52 communities across the United States to help caregivers and to take care of residents that have memory loss. Arden Courts is also a great resource because they have educational opportunities for caregivers. One such opportunity is this free book that they'd like to offer to you. It's called The 36-Hour Day. It's a wonderful resource for caregivers. It's called A Family Guide to Caring for People Who Have Alzheimer's Disease, Related Dementia, and Memory Loss, written by Dr. Peter Rabens. This is a go-to book. It's very excellent on giving you tips and techniques and information in general about dementia. So if you'd like to have this book in your own home, all you have to do is call Arden Courts on their toll-free number and give them your name and address, and they'll be happy to mail a copy to you. So that number to call is 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410. Call them today and have them send you the 36-hour day book. It's a great tool for caregivers. So I'm here today with my colleague, Dawn Epstein. Dawn is the executive director and the supervisor of care management at the Alzheimer's Resource Center located here in Lake Worth, Florida. And we've been talking about a live case study, real life study, very current, that we had the opportunity to recently work on together. So we've set it up for you so you understand from the perspective of a family caregiver, a daughter in this case, taking care of her mom, what's going on at home, some of the challenges that she's facing, and get to the point where the daughter just feels that it's overwhelming. It's not good for the daughter. It's not good for the mother because of the environment where the mother's not getting enough stimulation or socialization or even oversight because the daughter works and there's not 24-hour supervision in the home at this point. So the doctor has referred the daughter and telling her, you must do something. And so now Dawn has received the call from the daughter. Mm-hmm. The daughter has spoken to you. You went and assessed the mom, and you went through the whole assessment. Now you've finished your assessment with the mother, and what happens next?
Well, first, it was a partial assessment, so it was really just going in for this purpose. We do full comprehensive assessments that take a lot longer than this.
But this one was about 3 hours.
Yes, yeah. It ended up being about 3 hours to really go in there and really make the determination of what was most appropriate for her.
Because there's a lot to look for.
Absolutely.
And you're looking across the spectrum of emotional, medical, safety issues, cognitive, everything. Right. You're really getting in depth with this.
Right. And there were a lot of factors to take into consideration. I mean, not only do you have to take into those, but you have to take in the caregiver, the person that's taking care of them, their well-being too, obviously.
The daughter in this case.
Right. I mean, this disease doesn't just affect the person with it. It really affects the entire family.
The stress that the daughter's going through, the not knowing what's going to happen next.
Right. And just, the constant stress. She is at risk now. So she's in crisis, not just for the mom situation. Her health is in crisis and could very well start having some serious health consequences for her because it's been going on for a period of time too. So we were very concerned about the daughter, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, really concerned about her. So we had to take that into account too, into our recommendations. You also have, financial issues with these families. We can recommend certain things. I can recommend, all kinds of options, but we have to know what the reality is in terms of what they can afford, because you can't want to tell someone that a Mercedes, this is your best option, when you know that they can only afford a Volkswagen, or vice versa. So we had to be appropriate there. Obviously in this case, mom, we can always provide or find opportunities for someone in their home we can send someone in to train the caregivers on setting up activities, making moments matter throughout the day. We can do that for families, and that would entail keeping the loved one at home.
And that's one option,
right?
If that's the best option,
right? Exactly. And in this particular case, what convinced me that wasn't the best option is because of the daughter's well-being too, and the safety concerns in the house. It just was and quality of life. If you're at the point where your behaviors are so severe, you have to be locked out of certain areas. The quality of life and the frustration that would cause too is also an issue for the mom. Safety issues was huge, but again, the daughter's well-being, that's huge as well, because we don't want this disease. Unfortunately has many victims, but we, obviously the caregivers also can become a victim if we're not careful.
They say Alzheimer's disease doesn't affect one person; it affects the whole family.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So in this case, we really felt that the option, the best option for her was an assisted living with memory care component, so that it would be safe and secure. Mainly that she'd be able to roam around and do the things that she wanted to do repetitively, folding or do the laundry. They're probably not going to give her endless soap either, but certain options that she could find meaningful activities to do, because in assisted living communities for memory impairment, they do have activities. and socialization, which she desperately needs and won't really go out on her own.
And that's what was
do.
majorly lacking in her life.
Yes, I believe that was a huge source of where these behaviors were coming from. And when we do these assessments, in any type of assessment that involves behaviors that are challenging, is to find out what we think is contributing, or, I mean, if we can, kind of what's causing.
Well, you
those
want to find
behaviors.
the reason for it.
Right.
You know, you have a behavior, and there's usually a reason behind that behavior why the person's doing what they're doing.
Right.
And once you find the reason for it, then most times you can
Right.
find a solution.
There's some unmet need that's
Yes.
causing it. And in her case, I think that unmet need was a lack of socialization and cognitive stimulation, because there really wasn't
Anything
wasn't
to do.
anything to do during the day. So this would provide her something to do safely. I also did recommend, transition period, to the daughter as well, to have her caregiver, who she is very, very accustomed to and attached to perhaps go with her and acclimate her, and then you can slowly, taper that off so as not to completely cut her off from her. I mean, this is her comfort zone, definitely. So that was part of our recommendation. But also the type of assisted living facility. There are many that have a memory component. And in her case, because she's very high functioning and has a high awareness level, we wanted to direct the daughter to facilities that basically had the same type of clientele that she would be able to associate with, socialize with.
Relate to.
Right, exactly. And she would also be very aware if her environment were not like that. She would notice if the other people were not functioning at the same level. And we didn't want to put her in that uncomfortable situation or environment.
Wouldn't have been a good fit.
No. So we basically, tailored our recommendations to the options that we felt would benefit her. We took into proximity as well, because that was a factor for the daughter. She wants to see her mom on a regular basis. So, we took all of that, obviously the reputation, what we know about the facilities. We've been here in Palm Beach County, or I've been here in Palm Beach County with the Alzheimer's Care Resource Center since its inception 5 years ago, but been in this community and been in the healthcare industry for much longer than that. So the places that have the long-standing commitment to their patients and have that reputation, and those that may not have as good a reputation. So we can advise, and that's what we did in this case. And so I sent her to you,
Yes,
Marcia,
you did. Thank you very
to
much.
meet with her. I really felt that would be the best fit in this circumstance for her.
Well, thank you for that. And now I get to talk about my meeting with the
Right.
daughter, because she actually came to visit with me, and actually you
Yeah.
set up the appointment for her. So you
Right,
even
right.
went the extra step and
Right.
called to make the appointment, which
Right.
again, to somebody who's already stressed out and overwhelmed,
yeah.
even making a phone call to set an appointment can be just too
Oh,
much.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it took a lot of reassuring. This is a very doting daughter, and she wanted to do what's best for her mother, and most importantly was not concerned about herself. We were concerned about her. Her only concern was her mom in the best environment that she could be. So she needed a lot of reassuring that based on our findings, this was absolutely the best option.
Well, she did come and she met with me, and I found her to be extremely caring person.
Very.
Loved her mother very, very much, or loves her mother very much, and wants the best for her mom. And I found that too. It was very evident with
Right.
the questions that she asked and what concerned her more about her mom. And when you ask her how she's doing, she'd turn it around sometimes about the mom. So
Right.
caregivers sometimes don't realize to the stress that they're under, and when they do, like you said, that's when you really have to help them. Sometimes they need a little pushing,
Right.
just to realize where they're at,
Realize their needs are important too, and they have
Yes.
been neglecting them.
Exactly.
I think that happens a lot in caregivers.
And this daughter was very concerned about mom. And when I sat down with her, she did explain to me some of the things that she told you. And I'm doing my little visit with her, and we're having just a conversation and having her tell me about mom. And I heard about the obsessive behaviors, and
Right.
I heard about the loads and loads of laundry, and I heard those things. So she was very forthcoming, and you need to do that when you're going to visit an assisted living. looking for a placement for someone, you want to be upfront. You want to tell them everything that you know, because you don't want any surprises in either side.
Right.
And so the best course of action is to really lay all your cards out on the table, because if we don't know what the issues are, then we're not going to be able to, meet the needs as well.
Right.
And no surprises. So we want to have that conversation and help the caregiver as best that we can.
Right. You have to get to know what the likes, the dislikes, what she likes to do, so that you can make, obviously make the transition easier and make it enjoyable for her, because that's the ultimate goal, is to give her that.
Right. Now,
stimulation
you and
that she's
I had
lacking.
not talked up till today about this
Right.
case.
No.
And I met with the daughter not knowing any of what you already did. And so now that you've explained to me your side of it, it's very interesting, because I can concur that this particular woman, the mom, was very appropriate for dementia care and assisted living. She didn't
Right.
need a nursing home.
No.
And she was not well enough to be taken care of in a regular assisted living, because there was too much freedom and not enough supervision.
Yeah, not without 24-hour care there too.
Exactly.
Which would have-
So I found her and assessed her from my end without even meeting the mom, because I can do that by the information that I get from the
Right.
family. And of course, we verify that.
Yeah.
But I assessed her so that I said to the daughter, your mother is a very good candidate for this type of community living. And I'll tell you why. Because the fact that she has dementia, right, you have to actually have the diagnosis, a true diagnosis, and before you can even think about that. But many people, believe it or not, never get a diagnosis. We have to send them to find out what's really going on. But in this case, she had a diagnosis. And I found out that the mom really did need the stimulation and the socialization that she was lacking at home. So I found through the daughter the same type of things. And I said, your mother would definitely benefit from this type of environment, because we have activities 7 days a week, all day long. She can do anything here in Arden Courts that she could do in her own home, as long as it was safe, key word, and she was happy. And the daughter loved that, because she didn't want to take mom out of her home. She felt a little guilty that she was going to have mom removed from her home. Mm-hmm. So we had another conversation, and this conversation then went something like, well, I want my mom to be here, but how do I do it? What do I say? She won't come if I tell her. And I said, You're right. She probably won't come if you say, Mom, I'm going to go put you in an assisted living because you don't have any memory much anymore, and you're going to leave your home and you're never coming back. Now, who would go for that?
Yeah, first of all, you remember, she has no insight that there's a problem. So it's not going to make any sense to her. Mm-hmm. She's going to be angry. This is where a lot of families have problems.
Yes,
is that they want mom, and I would love to go. Mom, exactly like you said. Here's all this stuff that's going on that she doesn't remember. That all this is that you've done. This is why, and you need to go. And sure, I'll go. This is going to be great. Never happens.
Never happens. No.
So. But families have a hard, they want that. Mm-hmm. That's one of the hardest things for caregivers to understand. And someone gave me this analogy, and I can't remember who, so I'm stealing it. But if someone has a broken arm, you don't ask them to throw the ball, because obviously, you can see it's broken. Mm-hmm. Well, you're asking her to make a rational, logical judgment on her abilities when she doesn't even have the insight to know that there's a problem. She has a memory impairment. She's got a neurocognitive impairment. She's got a disease in the brain. Her brain is broken, for lack of a better word.
Like the broken arm. So why are you asking her to do something that she can't do?
Right, to make a logical judgment based on the facts would take a fully functioning brain. And unfortunately, when you have a disease like Alzheimer's disease, that's taken away from these people.
Right, and all they hear is you're leaving your home and you're not coming back. And, of course, you're going to have World War III at that point.
Yes.
So
make it a temporary dislocate or relocation.
So I always tell the families, I said, first of all, don't say a word to your loved one, all right, until we know what the plan is, until we know the day and the time. Yeah. Don't say a word. Don't try to ease into it. Don't try to make it, a happy thing, because all they're going to do, especially in a case like this, where the mom obsesses about everything.
It's going to give her something to obsess about.
That's all she's going to do is worry about it and talk about it and get upset and get anxious.
When am I going?
And where is it and why? And it more fuel to the fire.
Absolutely.
To really upset the daughter.
Right.
And the mom, too, at the
Yes.
same time. So I explained to her, so we have to have a story.
Yes.
And the story...
We haven't discussed this yet either.
No, we
have
haven't
not. We're doing
discussed this.
now.
We're doing this live
Doing this
right now. Real live case study.
Yep.
She has to have a story. And I
Okay.
said the story doesn't have to be necessarily all fabricated. It can be some
Right.
truth. You can stretch the truth a little bit, make it up. But it has to be something that the mom feels is a temporary thing. Why mom is
believe
going
it.
someplace else that she's going to believe
Yeah.
that she needs to go, and there's no negotiation. It's got to be something maybe the doctor wants her to go because
Right.
usually they will follow doctor's orders. But a reason why she's coming to this other place for a while, and we
Right.
never put a time frame on it. You don't want to put any length of time or dates or anything like that. You want to leave it open-ended.
Right.
And that she thinks it's temporary so that when she's finished with whatever she's supposed to be there for, she's going to be back home.
Exactly.
And that's what I told the daughter. So the daughter decided she definitely wanted mom to be at Arden Courts.
Okay.
I saw her body language relax.
Oh, she needed that very much.
I felt that she found peace with her decision. Actually, she told me that she had peace with the decision because she
Good.
felt that it was the right thing to do, because she had your input, the doctor's input, your second opinion input, talked with me about what the logistics of it would be and how it would happen. And she felt peace about it, knowing that mom was going to be safe and mom was going to be well cared for, and that she could continue to see the mom as much as she wanted and be the daughter and not have to be the stressed out caregiver.
Yes, and mom would be happy most of all. It's about quality of life. It's about safety. Obviously you want the person to be medically stable, safe, but quality of life.
Yeah.
It's all about here. She is actually in her home. She was, like we talked about before, being kept prisoner because her behaviors were unsafe and unhealthy, and so she could not do this in an environment where she can have 24-hour supervision, basically, and distraction, and things can be open, and she can go and do things without. It is already the environment's already basically safety proofed. Works for her because it gives her. It actually frees her up now more free than she is in her own home.
Right. And she has the freedom to go inside, outside. She has more choices because there's no wrong choices because it's all safe no matter what choices she wants to do.
So the frustration is lessened, and she's not told no, which that's going to cause frustration. That will lead to agitation and aggravation, and on both parts.
Well, and one of the things that I found that was very lacking too was structure. And I explained to the daughter that people with dementia, they need structure during their day. And if you don't have a structured day, so every day is different, you're doing this at one time, that at another, and nothing is really structured, it causes them to be more agitated because they don't know what's going to happen next. And if you structure their day and do certain things at the certain time of the day, even if they're different things, but you do them, the meals at the same time of the day, you do, go for a walk the same time of day, you do everything at the same time each day, it really soothes them.
Right. It's comforting to know what's happening next. If you live in a world where you don't understand your surroundings and you're already confused and you don't know what's happening, then yes, you're going to be anxious. If you think about it, anyone would.
So the daughter agreed that mom needed this. So we agreed that mom was going to move in, and now we're in the process of doing what we need to do. So I'll be getting the doctor's orders that are necessary. I will be visiting mom myself to meet her, and then we'll have the daughter fill out all the necessary paperwork. So I'm going to keep you posted with the outcome, and I think that we'll save the rest of the story for when we know the rest of the story, when mom moves in and the transition,
and what
story we come up with.
I have some ideas on that.
Okay, me too. And we'll talk about then the transition and mom's journey into dementia assisted living. In the meantime, we have 2 minutes. I want you to tell everybody how they can contact you if they're in a situation where you could help.
Oh, absolutely. We are the Alzheimer's Care Resource Center. Our phone number is 561-588-4545. You can look us up. We have our website, www.alzheimerscareresourcecenter.org. You can look up all of our services. We have a lot of free services, support groups, fun activities for caregivers. It's a really way to connect with other people that are going through similar situations and really form a support group for you. And obviously, you can always set up a coaching session with us. We'll meet with families for free as a consultation to help provide guidance, support, and education.
That's awesome. So give Dawn a call. She is wonderful, as you can see, and she helps many caregivers and families through this difficult journey of caregiving. And so I want to encourage you to reach out to her. I also want to encourage you to call Arden Courts for your free book of the 36-hour day. We will see you next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, give someone a hug because they need it, and so do you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its